free water there.
Wow. Great.
Have you done a podcast before?
Yeah.
You seem like you would probably have a podcast. Like this could be, a vehicle for you. 14 News Sunrise anchor Mitch Carter joins us on Inside Look this morning. And Mitch, you still look wide awake, ready to go here.
Feeling good.
You just finished, 4.5, 5 hours of news?
Something
It
like
must
that,
seem
yeah.
like that. So tell me about Mitch Carter. I mean, I know a couple things about
Sure.
you, and I'm going to bring those up at probably the worst possible time.
No worries.
But I know you started out up at Southridge, right? You were a Raider football player.
Yes,
I
yep.
always like to bug you about football.
That's okay.
Yeah. So talk about that path from blocking and tackling to reading and reporting.
Yeah. No, it's an odd one. I went to Southridge High School.
We love odd, by the
Yeah,
way. That's
right?
that's our whole reason for existence.
Right. Well, I'm from Du Bois County, from Huntingburg. I went to Southridge. I'm the oldest of 3 boys, so I was the oldest sibling. Was fortunate enough when I was there to be able to do the sports stuff. I played football, wrestled, did track. I was fortunate enough to win a state championship while I was there, which was neat, which kind of catapulted me to college football. So I played football there at Ball State for a couple of years, played fullback. I was fortunate there as well to win a bowl game and a conference championship, which was neat. But as far as, transferring to TV news especially, I studied print in college. I liked writing, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I thought, well, this is fine. So I did the English stuff, did the newspaper stuff, and as a senior, I graduated in 3.5 years, so I graduated in December. And as a senior, it's probably October, we're in the middle of the season, and I've got this capstone course because, as you know, a very famous Ball State alumni, David Letterman.
Right,
he's
right.
a big deal.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's kind of a big deal. But as part of the program, if I remember correctly, you've got to take a capstone course where if you're doing any kind of media, you've got to kind of get a piece of all the media, if that kind of makes sense. So I had no interest in being on TV, didn't want to be on camera, kind of a shy guy, honestly, if I'm being real with you. And
I hope you're being real with me.
well,
You don't
yes.
seem that shy anymore.
No, I figured it out now.
You're
but,
really shy? I mean, people tackled you, blocked you,
Yeah.
gouged you, sacked you, all those things that happen in football?
Yeah, not a ton of talking required in that, though.
Okay.
Just kind of maybe some grunts and such, but
Yeah?
not a lot of words.
What goes on in the huddle?
Ooh, in the huddle. Well,
What they not our show in the
Sure,
huddle. I
sure,
mean,
sure,
in the
sure.
real huddle.
Yeah.
We're third and long, and you got to decide what to do. Is there a lot of debate and talk back and forth in there, or
Not really a ton, Thankfully, that responsibility kind of falls on the coaching staff. We
Yeah.
kind of get to just do what they say. So if it doesn't work out, it's not our fault, But
pass
if it,
the buck,
but
right?
if it does, we did a great job.
it's all you?
One of
Right,
those.
right.
So
It's kind of like here, right?
Exactly, precisely, yeah. So I'm up there and I'm studying print, and as part of this capstone course, we've got to do TV stuff. They do kind of a midday show, I believe, on Wednesdays at Ball State, like the daily news and that kind of stuff. And so as part of this course, we were able to sign up to run prompter and run cameras. You could also anchor and do that kind of stuff. Well, I avoided the anchoring, didn't touch that, didn't sign up for it one time. But I ran prompters, I ran cameras and all that. That was fine. Behind the scenes is good. And twice, people that were signed up to anchor didn't show up. And I was always there, and so they said, hop on the desk. So I did it twice. I mean, it was pitiful. It was real. If I watched it now, I'm sure.
Just sweat a little bit.
Oh, it was terrible. And, and it was funny that I had to eat my ears pierced. I take my earrings out and get on the desk, as a college guy. And so I do that. I don't do great, but I do it. And, it comes around kind of October, November-ish. I'm graduating in, a month or two. Keep that
Right.
in mind. Don't have a job lined up yet. I had talked to one station at a career fair up, I believe, in Lafayette, but had no reel or anything like that, really no experience. And I go up to class one day. The class before, they had sign-ups to meet with news directors because, 14 News was coming up along with some other stations. Of course, we were gone, traveling somewhere on a plane, so I missed the sign-ups for that. And so I didn't know. And so I get to class, and I recognize the 14 logo because I know, I'm from Du Bois County. And it's Tanner Holbrook there, whose spot I'm now in, and then our former news director, Joe Schlarth. And I see them, and everyone talks a bit, and they go, all right, we're going to break now. Go talk to news directors, everyone who signed up. I didn't sign up. And so I'm like, well, I got to get a job. I got to figure this out. So Joe goes into a little conference room and has kind of got people lined up, meeting with him. Tanner goes upstairs to talk to another class. I'm in a full suit because I knew they were coming, but I didn't realize we had the opportunity. So I followed him upstairs and sat in a class full of freshmen in their sweatpants and all that in the back with my full suit, watched him give the same spiel. And he comes out in the hallway after, and I catch him. I said, hey, I had to grab you and tell you, my mom would be so upset with me if I didn't do this. You know, you're her favorite anchor. She loves watching you in the morning.
Butter him up, right?
My mom,
good MO.
In fact, did not watch him in the morning. I had no idea who he was.
Okay, that's all right.
It was a little white lie. But knowing him now, I mean, cut right to him, blew his head up. He loved it. He knows the story now, so it's funny. But he's like, well, great. You're from DuBois County. Do you have like work? And I said, well, yeah, I've done like 3 stories and I've anchored twice. I show him that. And he's like, well, do you want to meet with our news director? I said, sure. Cut everybody in line, not signed up, and went in there and shook hands and did the whole thing and talked to everybody. And, from there, they were like, well, you don't have a ton of work, but we'll reach out. And then, a month or so goes by and Joe calls me and says, yeah, you don't really have any experience, but we'll take you if you're interested. I said, sure, sounds good. Signed the line, and we played a bowl game that Christmas Day in Alabama, and January 10th is my first day. So I kind of walked in here. I told my parents before I started, and laughing, it's like, I'm going to be on TV. Not knowing I was going to be on TV every day. I didn't know what an MMJ was. I just signed a contract.
Right.
So, and here I am.
So you came in here taped with your ankle still taped up, still a little bruised and beaten from
mouth guard
from
still
the bowl.
still attached. Oh yeah.
I can't remember. Did Ball State win in the bowl game?
So my senior year we didn't. My junior year we did. So
Okay.
yeah, we had just gotten smoked in Alabama on Christmas by Georgia Southern, I think, and I licked my wounds and ended up in Evansville.
I was hoping that they had won, so you'd have the cap on the capstone, before you started here.
Right.
Now you mentioned English and writing earlier, and there was this thing in the newsroom that's been around for a while, the Mitchinary, and I wanted to show this here on the podcast.
Certainly.
Because it's upside down. You can probably read it upside down.
Oh, yeah.
When you started here, not long after, somebody started to compile all these phrases that only Mitch Carter seems to use, or that you use very well.
Yes.
You have a favorite one on here, or like dog water? I really like that
Dog
one.
water was funny.
Yeah.
Well, I showed up and like I had jobs before, obviously. I worked throughout college, but never really had like a professional environment per se. So I was still using all the slang I used in college. So I would tell them, yeah, I'm actually going back to the crib. And they'd say, the what? I have to say, the crib is home, DuBois County. And as time goes on, I kept saying these things to people, and no one understood what I said. So I think they had to kind of get a little dictionary going here to make sure they could understand me when I was talking.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a lot on there, a lot of stuff.
So slime equals friend. Is that how I read this? This thing here? So I would be slime then?
We would be slimes, Jeff.
And where does that come from? I mean, slime kind of has negative connotation. I think of snot,
Yeah. I think that was one of those things I just kind of picked up, hanging out with the guys in school and all that. And so, yeah, all kinds of stuff. And then a little bit just kind of college lingo, stuff I picked up from growing up at home, all that sort of stuff.
And I got thanks bleed down here, which says see slime.
See slime. Just another friend for a friend.
Okay. Very nice. Well, I like this. And it's
Thank
survived.
you.
Usually whiteboards in the newsroom
They
have
don't
a
last long.
life expectancy of about 2 minutes before somebody doctors it up a little bit.
That's been there for probably a little over 2 years now.
So you've already made your impact, I mean.
To some degree.
And you did that like in 3 months. So now I know at first you were living with Jordan Yaney, right? You guys are sharing, there's probably a crib, right? Well, not the crib, but a crib.
Certainly.
And of course, Jordan went off and got married. So did you stay with them, or how did that go?
They got married. So at first, I lived at home and commuted for my first probably 6 months here, and then I thought, that's a while.
That's a while. Plus the time change and all.
Yeah. So I'd get off at 7, get home at 9. That's brutal. So I decided to move to Evansville. Well, Jordan and I had become kind of quick friends. We sat by each other when I showed up here, and he was kind of working on getting out of a lease, and I was looking to move, so it kind of worked out. So we ended up getting a place together in Evansville, which was awesome. Didn't realize at the time he was planning on proposing to his then girlfriend Felicity, who became his wife while I still lived there.
Right.
So I lived upstairs with this newly married couple below me for about a month or two before I moved out. They got married in the summertime, and I moved out, I think, in August. So now I've got my own apartment here in Evansville. I've moved on, but now I'm kind of on the same track as he is.
You still go over there and just leave a few dirty dishes in the
Sure,
sink just to let him know you haven't forgotten them. I think there's a term for that on the Mitchinary too. So now you talked about you came in basically no experience. You're learning it, day by day, like drinking out of a fire hose, right?
Yes, certainly.
I mean, trying to figure it all out.
Yeah.
Now you're running the morning show. I mean, you and Jamie, of course, you're co-anchoring. How's that worked out for you?
It's been good. It's been good. I was fortunate, like I said, I showed up. I mean, I couldn't turn the camera on. I had no idea how to work anything. And I was lucky enough that when I came, everybody kind of knew that I was being hired more so because I was local and because they liked me, not because I was super skilled yet.
But you're a quick study.
Yes, I learned quick.
Because I never knew you didn't know anything.
Good.
I mean, you fool me, and I've seen a lot of people,
Right.
and I thought, well, that guy's pretty good. Where'd he come from? And and so now you're on the morning program. And what's that been like for you then? Because obviously a lot more people are seeing you on a regular basis versus, if you had a story on the 6 o'clock or something. So I'm sure there's that factor when you walk into a room now, not only do you light up the room, but people say, hey, there's that guy from the morning show. So how do you handle that?
It's funny, at first, because people would kind of recognize you here and there when you were just reporting because they see you on TV or they might see you in a commercial, and now certainly more so. And at first, when I was kind of new yet, I would get kind of upset because people would kind of stare at you. Okay, and I realize now it's because they think they can place you. They don't know exactly who you are. They don't want to be wrong. And so I catch people staring at me.
Aren't you that guy from Channel 25?
Exactly. Yeah. Or I would get people. I've been called Max Parker. I've been called Jordan Yaney. I've been called Brady Williams, which is a stark difference. He's got red hair.
I was going to say that's and even Jordan Yaney.
Yeah,
that's
different.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
But and it's one of those things. Like I said, at first, I would catch people staring at me in public, and I'd be like, "What's your problem?" Not knowing what was going on. Now, of course, I realize, because you think you recognize me, but you're not entirely sure. But now with this gig, I think it has kind of shifted now more. I think people, do kind of immediately kind of make that connection, which is kind of neat. I'm always happy to talk to folks in the community. It's always fun, but it's definitely different. Yeah,
I'm sure. And it's a big life switch. And, the great thing, since your family lives up in Du Bois County, they can watch it. They know if you come to work or not, right? Yes. So they don't have to track your dot on a phone. They can just turn on the TV.
They know where I'm at.
What's been your favorite story so far? Favorite thing that you've done here in the business?
Favorite story? I tell you what.
Not necessarily story, just favorite experience you've had. Let's put it that way.
I tell you what, there's kind of this thing with TV news where an election is always just a huge deal. There's all kinds of stuff going on, but I have gotten to cover several. And I think this last year, when we did kind of our local election here, I was there at the Democratic watch party, and it was just a complete sweep. And I got to be there and do kind of the first interview with Stephanie Terry, our mayor here in Evansville now, and that was pretty neat. And then just kind of being in the thick of it. And speaking of just, coming into this not knowing anything, I remember at a point this last election when I was there, our local one, looking around and like the lights turn off and the interview's done, and I'm like, oh boy, things have really, ramped up a notch. Like you don't think about it in the moment, then you take a step back and kind of reflect like, wow, I came a long way from not being able to turn the camera on.
To talking to the mayor and talking to a lot of people and learning from it, and making those connections, which is, longer you stay, more people know you. It becomes easier then to generate stories and things like that. So it does get easier, although it sounds like you've done everything the hard way in your life. So, that's probably not a challenge for you. Right. So you still playing football? You still roughhouse around? I don't lift weights? What do you do?
I still work out. I go to a gym here in Evansville, and that's fun. That was something I kind of liked right away. Was I kind of, before I worked on Sunrise, I would still get up pretty early and go work out. And I made this group of friends, a lot of older gentlemen, and we would every morning I'd go in there.
Be careful.
Yeah, right. And it's fun to just kind of make some community there. Obviously I'm from the area, but not from here. Right. And so that was kind of an adjustment, I think, moving from, Du Bois County to Muncie, back to Du Bois County, now to Evansville. And it was nice, I guess there is kind of the benefit of that, of being on TV, and people feel like they know you because they watch you and they feel like, you've made the connection. So people are very friendly, which is great. And so I've gotten to kind of carve out my own little piece of community. But as far as football goes, not too much of that anymore. I think my body can take that much more. But with lifting weights, I can do that.
Can you take one more football question? I know
Certainly,
it seems like I'm upset. My dad was a football coach.
And
so I grew up around it. I never played. I don't know if you ever figured that out. I was never a football player. And my dad probably knew that very early on, when I failed to gain any sort of weight. But I did other things. Yeah. And we got along fine. That was not an issue. Mm-hmm. But when he was coaching, especially when I was younger, I'd go to the games and stuff, and I just tag along. And so I'd go in the field house, at halftime and hear the speeches and all that stuff. And they were all yelling and everything. Yeah, so I want to know at the college level, and let's say you're behind, like at the bowl game there when right before you came here and you're playing Georgia Southern. Mm-hmm. You go in the at halftime. I don't know whether you were ahead or behind at that point. I'm assuming behind.
Yes.
So you go into the halftime thing.
Okay.
What's that like in there? Like, on TV, in movies, it's always like the coach has this soul-stirring,
right,
thing. But what really happens in there?
Not a lot of words I can repeat, unfortunately, on our podcast here. But it was interesting, the high school versus college dynamic. Because in high school, especially like Southridge, where there's just less kids overall,
Sure.
we might have had 40 kids on the team. In college, there's 100 kids. It's a lot. I guess 100 men. We're all adults there. But it's different because instead of having your head coach do kind of a rah-rah for the whole team, it's much more professional, where you kind of break into your position groups, and your position coach comes up to you guys like, all right, we're going to adjust this and do this and this. And then the head coach might come in and give kind of a rah-rah. I can't remember precisely, what was kind of said at that particular game, but I'm sure it was something along the lines of, last one for a lot of you seniors, gentlemen, like, let's figure it out, and unfortunately we did lose that one, but no, always fun, but it's pretty similar to what you think you'd see in kind of pop culture and TV.
And do you really get to, it's only like, 15, 20 minutes
like
at the
that,
half
yeah.
by the time you go in and then come back out. Mm-hmm. Aren't you still kind of like this the whole time,
a little
from
bit.
being in the game and everything?
Yeah, a little bit. My favorite part was there was always snacks in there. So I'm in there just housing Smuckers and grapes and
You didn't have to go to the concession stand, huh?
No. There was always goodies in there.
Get some, kind of roachy popcorn up there. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
My first roommate in college had been a red-shirted football player.
Okay.
I was at IU.
Mm-hmm.
We had no football. This was in 1982.
Sure.
We weren't winning a lot of football games then. And it was the first time I'd ever seen like a collegiate football player up close. Mm-hmm. And he blocked out the door. He'd come in. We lasted 4 weeks because there was another football player down the hall who lived with a guy similar to me, kind of
swapped them?
Right. And
right.
so, well, it was highly recommended. He kind of came with the paperwork that you want to move down with, and so I did.
Yeah.
But he lived an entirely different life on campus.
Yes.
Like at dinner time, we'd go up and have meatloaf, and he went somewhere and they had steaks, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they fed you pretty well.
Yeah, no, there wasn't a ton of steaks necessarily, but they definitely did. That was a big part of it, was as team meals. And even news stuff aside, I had a very strange college experience because you don't really eat with everybody else. You go to like these specific cafeterias where they feed you as many chicken breasts as you can handle and just fruits and vegetables and all that. And we would wake up at 4 and do a morning run and then have to all eat breakfast together and that stuff. And that was fun, but you definitely kind of are forced to forge your own community there among the guys you're playing with. But it was always a good time.
And now you're forcing a community here with your 14 news funsters every morning.
Yes.
And you got a great team there. Maybe not 100 on the team, but enough.
It's a good team
to do it.
Yes.
And you're making it, right?
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on here, Mitch Carter. I know you got steaks to eat and runs to make.
That's right.
Probably another show coming up here pretty soon. Thanks for being on Inside Look.
Thanks for having me.
If you want to see more interviews with 14 folks or a lot of people from the community, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can also get Inside Look wherever you find your podcasts. Thanks for watching.